go out for? How does that match with you? What you're trying to go out for? You know?
Did you guys switch your
We don't need to go to Yes, yes. Then the some of the things that has happened, like a year ago, like this building was called, and chemical, what do you call trend. Like there was some emergency shutdown. Now, that building has not been there. We're looking at some of those type of things, maybe like clear, so since it did not happen, we can't work with those type of vendors now. It's independent.
our call centers are good? Child care, they're not. Where is it?
5 minutes up by my house. It's on a main car.
Okay.
So I have to be there each week. But hey, feel it. And then I meant to look in the car, but your lip covers it because of it. Anyway, sorry. Just let you know it's anyone.
Every block.
Oh, it's like
Yeah, I want to go right there.
do another announcement too. And I'll ask, we'll do social media. It's under, I don't know for certain, but it's on the software system, and it should include every member.
I'm coming.
Right there, the red button. Mm-hmm.
Welcome to WebEx.
Happy New Year.
Please enter your access code or meeting number followed by the pound sign.
Brenda?
1 second.
Sure. Rearrange seats.
Please enter your attendee ID number followed by the pound sign. If you do not know your attendee number, just press pound to continue. Welcome to WebEx. You will now be placed into the conference. You are the first attendee to join the conference. Please stand by.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, so these are your three parts. When you do the approval of the agenda, this is when you're going to read these items up, because these are the items that we know have been removed, or there's minutes to, or have been moved to the action calendar. You know, people are still moving things to the action calendar. Just these 4 bullet points here. So when Cassie puts the agenda, she says, move to approval of the agenda, you're gonna say, I do have, No. This is for closed session. When they do the readout, this is what
Good. How are you doing?
So this is for under approval of the agenda. Have your
Top, I gotta take my kids.
Yes.
and go back.
yes. I shook the top. I got you.
So this is gonna
That's
be
gonna
going down
you're
the
gonna
line.
put this out for the readout in the closed session.
Okay, so this is, and it says replication to the extent.
Yes. Okay. And then so when Trustee Bonilla says, do you have
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so she'll prompt you about these 4 items. No, these are just edits that we had to make to the agenda. So example, this one had to be removed, you know, one thing, this is being moved to the action calendar. And then people still might move things to the action, but this is what we know so far.
Oh, I see. So I'm gonna say this.
She'll prompt you.
But this is the first one.
That's the first thing.
And then
Yeah. And then the speaker cards is under public communication. So that's gonna be under it's gonna be under right after the district academic senate report. You're gonna see public communication. Section 1.
Oh, so we have to do this.
Yeah. So she'll say, do we have any public communication? You'll say, yes, we have some speaker cards. So please, when I call your name, make sure you line up with the podium. And then this will be the first person. So you might want to do it in groups of 4. Yeah, we only have 6. But just because people don't remember, or you can do the whole 6, it's up to you. And they'll have 3 minutes.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Are you guys there?
Pardon?
Are you, Trustee Wither, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How about Trustee Reese?
But what she has a hard time calling back in.
Yeah, let me try.
Somehow I'm in this system.
And just check over everything and just send me an email. I sent it by email too.
And so what this is telling me is that there's something wrong with our system. Like, how many others? No, I mean, this isn't you. There's something in our system that's like business law. Now, could this have been my daughter?
No, it's under your name, so take a look and get social security and everything. So just take a look at it and let me know, okay?
Yeah.
And if you send me an email, and we'll get rid of it.
2008, why would I be taking business law class? I was on the board of trustees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
I just, it's like, well, my daughter is taking classes.
Oh, this is the hot seat, y'all. Well, maybe not. Maybe be in the hot seat.
Who? Why? I don't know. I've been out. So. Yeah. Yes, and your shirt gives me all kind of life. I love it.
Okay, I don't know. I don't appreciate it.
How you doing?
Good. I would love to sit by you again.
Leave your mic on for remote.
It looks like we have all of our trustees here. Good evening. Happy New Year. We are going to almost call this to order. Hold on.
The audience to hear them? We have a microphone on the speaker.
Okay.
So,
Remind me, where is Cindy sitting? Is she sitting here?
she usually sits here.
Okay.
So that's why I
And
had
she
it here.
got moved.
She did.
She didn't know that.
Oh, she didn't know that.
No. Why don't you just give her a heads up?
Can you hear me?
Who's next to you?
I get
I'm here, but can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like a zoo going on there.
I know, doesn't it? I wonder how full the room is.
We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to have student trustee Jordan lead us in our pledge. Thank you. Student trustee Jordan. Everyone stand, please.
You can hear both of us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and do a report out of action taken in closed session. Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Today, January 8th, there was a recommendation to extend the appointment of Ahmed Ali as the Interim Director of Fiscal Services, District Office, from February 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2019 at $128,395 annually. 7 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstain, 0 absent. Number 2, ratification to extend appointment of Kelly Lynch McMahon as the Interim Director of Capital Projects and Facilities, District Office, from January 9th, 2019 through January 15th, 2019 at $161,889 annually. 7 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstain, 0 absent. If these individuals are present, please stand so that we can welcome you into your new position. Is anybody here? Okay. Madam President, that concludes the closed session readout for tonight.
Thank you for that. Before we move on to our next item, I'd like to notify the public that we have Trustee Withrow and Trustee Reese who are participating by conference call. And with that, we will move to 2.6, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to say something about the minutes.
Sure.
Sure.
Student trustee.
So the minutes have omitted the public comments and advisory votes. So I'd like to ask the chancellor if he could ask the board clerk if for the last minutes and for all future minutes, if the public comments and the student advisory votes can be put on the minutes.
We certainly will do that.
Thank you.
With that amendment, I move approval.
We have an approval. We need a second. It's been properly motioned and second. Can we take a roll call, please?
Student trustee Galan.
Here.
Student trustee Jordan is not here. Trustee Withrow.
Aye.
Trustee Handy. Trustee Gonzalez Yuen.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese.
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein.
Yes.
And Trustee Bonilla. Thank you. Motion passes.
So, out of order, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and Vice President, Madam Vice President, please go ahead and read out your notes.
Under presentations, item 4.2 has been removed and will be presented at the January 22nd, 2019 board meeting. Under 5.1, travel for Siri Brown has been removed. Agenda item 5.2 has been moved to the action calendar, and agenda item 10.1 has been removed and will return to the January 22nd board meeting.
Can I have an approval of the readout, which amends the agenda? I need to ask you to restate the motion, right? Yes, with those changes. Trustee Brown?
Second?
And the second, and we can take a roll call vote. Thank you.
Student trustee Galan. Trustee Withrow.
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuen. Trustee Napoli Abella Reese.
Yes.
Trustee Brown. Trustee Weinstein. Trustee Bonilla.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
We'll move on to item 2.7, Associated Student Government Reports. Please come to the mic.
Oh, I was about to say. Just put it right there. I'm not going to be so long because I know there's really not much I can tell you guys since we went on a very long break. Happy New Year to everybody and happy holidays and all that. Excited for this new year. What we've been doing is just still collecting our clothes and items for the Butte County Community College campfire victims. And we've also been collecting a little bit for the LA fire victims, and we're going to send those out. And then after the month of January, we're going to start changing our bins every month. So February is looking like it's going to be toys and stuff for the Children's Hospital, for them to get toys outside of the season that they usually get them, which is like around the snowy time, feeling cold air. March has not been fully decided yet. April is going to be giving makeup to women's shelters that are abused for that month. And then May and June are still being decided on. But those are the ones that we've decided on this far. We're planning and helping out for our Super Saturday that's coming up on the 19th and the 26th, as you guys know. We're getting ready for our welcome week from the 22nd to the 25th, and we have K-Meal coming up to our campus again. So you know, we popping. We got our book voucher started. So if there's any students here, any students listening on the YouTube or somewhere watching this later on, if you're a Merit College student and you've exceeded your amounts on EOPS, please come to ASMC or come to the student activities office in R124. We have applications for you guys to fill out, so we can then get you guys some books if you don't have the money to get the books, and that includes people who don't qualify for financial aid as well. And our last thing is that our Criminal Justice Club has partnered with the Oakland Police Activities Legal, which is PAL, and my beautiful sorority, and the sorority that my president is a part of, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, on why going to college and explaining to all the Merit College students up to campus why community college is such an important choice to make for some people. It's also explaining it to middle schools, high schools, and even other colleges that may come that's not a community college if they're considering on coming back to community college and then going back to college to save a little money. Other than that, have a great meeting. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Thank you. Are there any other associated student reports? Seeing none, we will move on to classified Senate report.
Good evening. I'm Brandy Howard, representing on behalf of the Classified Senate. I just want to welcome you all back, and we're looking forward to a productive year. We don't have anything to report on this evening.
Thank you. And next, we have the Academic Senate report.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Purnell, Faculty Senate President for Berkeley City College, and I'm here on behalf of District Academic Senate President Donald Moore, and I have a report from him as follows. Good evening, President Bonilla and members of the Board of Trustees. Happy New Year to all, and Chancellor Laguerre, the college presidents, the faculty, classified professionals, students, and others. Most faculty are on their winter break with the exception of COA intersection instructors. As the break is nearing an end, faculty are updating their syllabi, updating their Canvas pages, and some are advertising their courses to increase enrollments. In Peralta, we have a student culture that does a last-minute surge with a frenzy of signing up for classes right before the semester starts and throughout the first week. This repeated process that we participate in at the beginning of the semester is being disrupted with all the state changes such as AB 705, AB 19, new funding formula, and other efforts that are forcing a change. In order to meet these changes, Peralta must fiscally right itself and must upgrade the enterprise system to better serve students and be ready for all the changes coming, or in some cases are already upon us. The District Academic Senate strongly supports a careful use of our bond funding to ensure controls are in place to prevent waste. The spending must have internal controls through finance to ensure that funds are spent appropriately. The District Academic Senate opposes the number of bond employees, 5, recommended by the Chancellor. Do we need that many? Can some of those functions reside with current employees, perhaps in finance? The District Academic Senate also opposes a new bond department located in the District General Services. We strongly believe that given the history that oversight should reside in finance with correct controls. As stated in our document regarding the 5-year fiscal plan, the District Academic Senate strongly believes that for every dollar cut from the colleges, there should be $3 cut from the district. The data has shown that Fund 1 increases have occurred in the district mostly. The colleges have not increased as much in Fund 1 over the past few years. The colleges have had grants that have been used mostly. Please see our proposed 5-year plan where we outline what we believe need to happen. The District Academic Senate looks forward to working with the Board of Trustees, the Chancellor, and the college presidents and the Peralta community to ensure that we are fiscally sound in whatever plan we move forward on. P.S. The District Academic Senate endorses the faculty concerns regarding temporary employees. We need to address this dire situation of student services and support. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into public communication. Madam Vice President?
Thank
Do we
you.
have speakers?
Could we please have Jennifer Shanowski and Justin Hoffman and Mary Clance Miller come to the podium? Thank you.
Hello, good evening, and Happy New Year to everyone. Happy 2019. There's a saying, New Year, New You, that everybody says around this time of year, and I hate that saying because I don't actually think that we ever are a new us, but I do think that we can be better us's. So I would like to start this new year by saying New Year, Better Peralta. And I hope that 2019 is going to bring better things for all of us as we move forward together. But in order for us to actually get better and move forward, I do believe that we have to acknowledge and settle the many issues that are hanging over us from the past. Right now, the PFT has a number of issues that continue to linger and that we have not been able to resolve with administration. We need these issues to be settled so that we can move on and do the hard work that we know we all have ahead of us, and will be highlighted on today's agenda with some of the letters that the Chancellor will be presenting. Some of these issues that are lingering, these are all grievances that the PFT has outstanding with the administration. Laney facilities concerns, including the swimming pool, broken grates and safety issues that continue to sort of plague that area of the college. Over-enrollment of DE courses in just blatant violation of the contract without adequate or in some cases any input from the faculty teaching those classes. Part-time faculty identified as being underpaid last August still have not been paid the money that is due to them for fair compensation. Full-time faculty members who in some cases have not had their assignments actually put in and are owed over $20,000 from underpayment for the last couple of years. Part-time coaches at Merritt College who have spent thousands of dollars out of their pockets and who still have not been reimbursed. Some of these are faculty members who have decided to leave Peralta to go to other districts because spending their own money more than they actually make in their jobs is really not viable. And of course, there's the issue of the classified staff and uncertainty associated with the positions of many people going forward this spring. So you're going to hear from a number of CTE faculty today who have come to talk about their concerns about safety and also educational quality. Classes start in 2 weeks, and people don't know whether they're going to have instructional assistants in their classrooms or what the status of those positions will be. And there's not been any clarity, despite the many questions that have been asked to many people and by many people on that issue. So all of these are issues that have been brought by the PFT to the administration more than a month ago and remain unresolved. So we really hope that we can resolve these things, we can move forward, and we can have a more productive 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Justin?
I'm waiving my time for Mary Clark Miller.
Okay.
Hi, so as Jennifer noted, there's some frustration building within the faculty and the lack of clarity on our instructional assistants. And we've been asking different people over the past couple of months is what's going on, what are the issues, and every time the question comes up, we get a different answer. So the CTE committee actually came up with a resolution, and I'm actually going to just read it in case people have forgotten because it went out December 9th, I believe. And it's, whereas we unanimously support the SEIU statement on creating permanent classified positions and agree that the misuse of temporary classified staff by extending contracts over years within the Peralta district must stop. And whereas the CE departments have many grant-supported classified positions that are funded for the term of the grant, and whereas we in the CE departments use those grants to fund instructional assistance in the programs, and those instructional assistants are critical for the educational experience for the students, as well as for the safety of the students operating machinery, and those instructional assistants gain valuable experience for their licensing and or placement into the workforce. Resolved that the CE District Committee requests that the instructional assistants and grant-based positions are moved from a standard classified classification to a different category to meet the needs of grants and the safety and educational experience of the students in the CE programs. And resolved the CE District Committee demand that the college and district administration acknowledge that temporary employees are doing the work that should be performed by permanent and classified staff, and resolved that the CE District Committee request that the full-time or permanent part-time employment is provided to these current positions instead of eliminating positions that serve in the front line and critical roles on our campuses. So we actually pulled this resolution together, and we feel that the district and the union needs to work together in order to come to an understanding that these instructional assistants are essential to our students' success and to their safety. And you're going to hear from a couple of others that are going to elaborate on the same. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So what can we have Cynthia Correa here, Louis Quinlan, if I have that right, and Joe Doyle. Also Matthew Silverberg.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cynthia Correa. I am the head of the carpentry department at Laney College, and we are flooded with students wanting to get trained in construction, and I needn't tell you that housing shortage is everything. My dilemma is your dilemma, because I can't do my job, which is to serve my students, if I don't have an IA and I don't have some other pair of eyes watching to make sure that there aren't extra fingers spread out. It is all the CTE courses are hands-on, they're technical, they require help to the instructor. If we had less students, I could do a better job. But we don't want less students, we want more students. And so I ask you to resolve the IA issue so that I can better serve my students with the help of an IA. Our courses that require technical software need IAs to help. The general IT don't know those softwares. They are very industry related. So we need special attention, but we bring you special things. And Peralta and Laney is unique in that for community colleges, and I ask you to resolve the resolution and support us in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Louis Quinlan. I'm Department Chair of the Laney College Machine Technology and Industrial Maintenance Program, and also the current Chair of the Laney Vocational CTE Advisory Committee. So we cut metal in my classes on high-speed machines, steel, stainless steel, aluminum, brass, all types of metal, and just as easily as it cuts the metal, it can cut fingers and hands and other parts of your body, and that's why we need instructional aids. Safety is a paramount. We have 25 to 30 students in our class, a beginning class that none of them have run machines before, and with one person there, there's no way that's a safe environment. For the past 4 years, we've had instructional assistants in every one of our classes, and besides the safety factor, this one factor has really pushed the needle. We always talk about pushing the needle in terms of student success. Our certificate and degrees have increased by 200 to 300% since we put instructional support in there. Every semester, we ask our students what could be improved in our program, and their answer every semester is more instructional support. So trying to run these classes without instructional support is a big safety issue. Now, you may think these people are working a lot of hours. The most anybody works is 10 hours a week, okay? Almost all of our students have full-time jobs where they're making 2 to 3 times what they make as instructional assistants. They're not interested in full-time jobs as instructional assistants. They would have to take huge pay cuts to be instructional assistants. They're interested because it improves their skills, and they want to give something back to a program that gave them a future and a career. And the final thing, I think, is things like our high school program that we run in the summer. If we can't have part-time instructional aides, we can't run those programs. The iDesign program that puts students in carpentry, machine tech, welding, and wood tech and machine tech for 1 week, all of those programs would have to go because we rely on 3 to 4 instructional assistants in those programs when we're trying to run it with 25 high school students, because it's just not safe any other way. So those are the reasons we support this, and we hope the board will come to the same conclusion.
Thank you. Joe?
Good evening, Chancellor, trustees, presidents, and the public. My name's Joe Doyle from Berkeley City College, the Multimedia Department, and I'm speaking on behalf of the IA problem, Instructional Assistant problem. I agree with what Louis has said and what Mary has said. And our IAs are incredibly important to us. And they are, quite frankly, satisfied with their working arrangements right now. But I need clarity from you as exactly what you have in mind for them, because they don't know, and I don't know. Now, I'm going to draw an analogy. They are, in my particular department, they are craftspeople, they are artists, they are software specialists, and they are instructors, all rolled into one. We rely very heavily on them. If it was an army, I would say, to draw an analogy, the students are the privates and the IAs are the sergeants, and I'm the lieutenant. I cannot go into battle without my sergeants. It's not going to work. I hope that drives it home. Please, let's get some clarity on this issue. Let's not fix something that's not broken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the correct one? Yeah. Hi, my name is Matthew Silverberg. I've been an instructor at Berkeley City College for over 15 years. It is a multimedia program that I've worked for. I've worked with a lot of software. I've worked with a lot of hardware there. And I am speaking now from my own experience, but also from that of now being here to help represent the CTE programs. Among other things, I just want to say that you've heard a beautiful explanation of the need for people to do assistance that's going to help our students learn effectively. There's three main issues. I'm going to synopsize them. There's technological issues. These are difficult, complicated things that we're trying to instruct our students. Sometimes they have hazardous issues. Sometimes they have questions of capital that needs to be used appropriately, and sometimes they have health and safety issues. You've heard all my predecessors speak about this effectively. We do need assistance. This is now probably my 8th or 9th year in which I have voluntarily not had an assistant, but I could use one, as could every other person who teaches these courses. Thank you.
I think that ends public communication. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. We will move into the Chancellor's report.
I would like to have two of our Vice Chancellors who need to make a short statement. We start with Vice Chancellor Ikau on the Laney swimming pool.
Yeah, thank you. The administration and the last 18 months have spent over $400,000 to be able to fix Laney swimming pool so that it becomes viable for instruction. Towards that end, the district hired a company called Tricon to be able to do the swimming pool chlorination. The project is complete. The remaining item on that project is a CO2 tank that is about 750 liters that is being inspected now with the intent to have CO2 in the tank to be able to make it functional. Also, the heating part of the project has been completed. So right now, the heating that is going into the pool is adequate for competition. Now, the areas where we've had challenges lately is the filters that were in the pool. There were some sand that was coming into the pool. So to be able to fix that, the district hired a company called Lincoln Aquatics. They have placed order for new filters that are about 2-3 weeks lead time. So as soon as those filters come in to replace what we have, then the entire project for the swimming pool should be completed, and then we'll be able to be functional. There are other cosmetics, health inspection, things like signage that needs to be in the proper place. The college is working with the college Fab Lab to be able to get some of those signage in place. So that is where we are so far.
And Vice Chancellor Whitaker will share the thoughts, some of the considerations that we have been making as an institution in regard to the hourly employees. Chanel.
Thank you, Chancellor. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and providing your comments regarding the ongoing situation with the short-term hourly employment. The district previously prepared a statement to communicate to everyone tonight so that we could help address many of the concerns that each of you spoke about earlier. The district as a whole and the administration in particular understand that this is a very serious and sensitive matter. Please know that the Department of Human Resources and the district's legal counsel are and will continue to work very closely with SEIU representatives and their legal counsel to resolve this situation with the least amount of disruption as possible. The district values each and every one of its employees, whether short-term hourly or regular. However, it is imperative that the district become compliant with the education code as it relates to short-term hourly employment. Therefore, there are difficult decisions that must be made regarding the district's personnel structure moving forward. This has been a long-standing issue, and the district, with the direction of the Board of Trustees, is working diligently to navigate through the ever-changing variables. A meeting between SEIU and their legal counsel, Human Resources, and the district's legal counsel is forthcoming. We anticipate a very positive outcome, and we strive to update the Peralta community on our ongoing efforts to bring resolution to this very complex situation. Thank you.
The next part of my report is...
Chancellor,
sorry.
Can I take chair's privilege?
Yes.
And so I have some clarifying questions on both statements that were just presented.
Yes.
So on the issue of the pool, do we have an understanding for how long the pool has been out of commission? And what is the expected date that the pool will come online? If that was presented, I don't think I heard that.
The pool has not been out of commission. The pool was functioning, but however, there were issues relating to sand getting into the equipment. If that were to allow to continue, it's going to disrupt the existing new equipment that has been put in place. So what we're trying to do right now is to be able to get those filters in such that we can be able to press the button and have all the equipment talking to each other. So right now we are looking at most likely the 3rd week of January or the 4th week of January to be able to have those filters installed. We're trying to expedite this through the vendor, but that would have led to other change orders. So we're working with the vendors to see how quickly those filters can be installed.
Thank you for that. And then a follow-up to VC Whitaker.
President Gilbertson would like to say something about the...
About the hourlies?
No, about the
about the swimming pool. Thank you.
Yes.
So I just wanted to, in addition to what Dr. Arcaro just said, I do want to say that the pool actually has been offline since December 20th. So just to give clarification, we had to shut the pool down to avoid the things that he was talking about. So it has not been in use now, and it will be online next week, we hope. But the filters take another 2 more weeks to get those filters. So I did want to just give that point of clarification that we actually had been shut down. There have been intermittent days where we've had to shut down in the last semester because of these issues. So that we're being on the record about it.
Thank you for that.
Excuse me, question. Were classes not in session December until they're still not in session, correct?
So there's a question around timing and use by classes and students.
So our pool is used for classes. It's also used for, we also do community education classes. So the swim team that's at Oakland, longstanding, they use the pool. We also rent it out for other, I mean, it's really the only kind of major pool in Oakland. So a lot of community organizations use it. So we do use it in that capacity. And then we also have sports teams that will begin using the pool again here. So we start up swimming and, water polo and those sports as well. So, so they do use it in the off semester times. It is used generally.
Thank you for that. Chancellor, I also want to take chair's privilege to, one, thank you for that update and thank VC Whitaker for this clarifying statement. But I am concerned as we're talking about the hourly and the engagement that is taking place between SEIU and the district right now, and we do want to be sensitive to those issues and acknowledge how difficult this has been on faculty, on students, on staff. Some of the things that are really concerning as we're thinking about maintaining compliance within our education code, it just strikes me that we have also another safety issue around OSHA and being in compliant with our occupational safety and health code also relative to CTE. So I would ask that the district take a deeper look at some of the issues that have been raised around classroom ratio, student to teacher ratio, in particularly where it will cause risk and liability and injuries, prone to injuries with some of our students in the classroom. So it doesn't really, I'm not looking for a response now, but definitely would like the district to relook at that and come back hopefully with some sort of resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to, I'm sure our president will attend to those issues, and I will certainly be in communication with them so that those issues, we make sure that we prioritize them because they're absolutely important for us to do. The last part of my Chancellor's report has to do with a couple of items that started from the board meeting, the last board meeting that we had, where we presented to you the response to the Accreditation Commission in terms of the request for an actionable fiscal improvement plan that they wanted for us to put in place. For that, I want to share with you that we responded to your directives as we have communicated to the board, as well as to the entire community of Peralta. A group of our employees responded to the call. They met for two days to talk about the plan and draft what I believe was a very good plan for the Accreditation Commission. The board members who were appointed to work with the administration did a very good job at being responsive and available to us when we needed them to be available to us and to respond to questions and give us feedback and approval necessary. We had quite a nice group of folks who stepped up to help. Our 4 college presidents, our vice presidents at the colleges, as well as our accreditation liaisons, our ALOs, were present and helped us. 3 academic senate presidents attended part of our work session. the PFT president, attended part of the work session. SEIU attended the PGC meeting, although we had invited them to be part of the work session. They couldn't make it, but they were at the PGC meeting. Our board clerk helped us tremendously, our interim chief of staff, and then the chancellor, the accreditation coordinator, as well as PBC and PGC members who came to a meeting specifically called for this particular item. They all came and provided feedback, input to the draft that we submitted to ACCJC. We submitted a plan summary that provided to the commission the activities that we wanted to undertake for the plan that we submitted to them, the individuals who are responsible to achieve the activities, as well as a timetable for the development of the plan, and then the expected outcomes for the plan were part of what we presented to them. We shared with the commission staff that we want to give them an update in March so that we don't wait until the last minute to give them an update in terms of where we are with the plan. And then we intend to submit the plan to them in May, since they have a meeting in June, so that will be timely for the next meeting. One of the things that that came together as we had received the letter from ACCJC was an interest to have FIGMAT come to the district and help us with our finance and enrollment and things like that. So we put in the letter that we had sent to FITMAC was included as part of our action plan. And we want technical assistance from FIGMAT to come and help us with our fiscal health. And we received very positive response from the State Chancellor's Office. The Vice Chancellor Osmania, who's assigned to us for this project, has been very encouraging and responsive to us. We are waiting to hear from them the next steps that we need to take on that. Based on the feedback from FITMAC, we certainly are expecting that the plan that we're going to submit to ACCJC will be quite viable. The other piece of the report and the plan we submitted to ACCJC has to do with a 5-year financial improvement plan. The Vice Chancellor of Finance and others put together a broad 5-year plan for our fiscal health. The plan will be refined and verified. Again, remember, when we did the plan, we didn't have a lot of time to make it happen. So we know that we need to verify it as well as refine the plan. The plan itself saves or cuts $12 million from our budget. It also allocates 15% of Peralta's revenue to the district compared to the percentage that is now. It also addresses our enrollment decline. It closes the structural deficit that has been an issue for us. Again, it is a draft that needs to be vetted, and it needs to be fleshed out and detailed thoroughly. It will be part of what the documentation we're going to present to FITMAC. Working with our board officers over the holiday break and responding to concerns about Peralta, I contacted our Sacramento delegation to provide access to legislative auditors. The legislative auditors are working with our delegation, and they are working with us to define what they can do for us based on the different instruments and tools that they have to help state agencies such as us. We have provided additional information, and again, we are waiting to hear back from them so that we know exactly what they can do for us. Peralta is definitely at the crossroad, and we have a lot of positive strokes. We went through a heavy political season that tested our resolves. We could go on as if everything is normal, but these issues will keep hitting us. We should not waste the opportunities that we are provided. ACCJC, FICMAT, state legislature audits, and other opportunities are great ways for us to do a stress test and have as good a diagnosis of our heart as we possibly can. The board is visionary in moving this way and demanding of us that we give these opportunities, we give these opportunities to dig deeper our best attention. So this was FICMAT, ACCJC, and legislative auditors. They all will come together and help Peralta do the best job that it can for its future. With that, Madam President, it concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. And we will open up for questions, if there are any. Trustee Brown.
Just have a question regarding a timeline. If we have gotten any indication of the start and end time for the JLAC audit, and if we have if we already have the contract with FICMAT regarding that gives us timelines and subject matter.
We do not have a timeline yet. We're expecting this is around the week that we should hear from the Chancellor's office, State Chancellor's office, about FICMAT. For the legislative auditor, they're still working on what they can do for us. And they're working together. We would like for them to work together with the different activities we have going on in terms of FICMAT, the ACCJC, so that what they do for us can really respond to something that one of those activities would not necessarily address. So we're still waiting for that. And we initiated the request rather lately, so we still need to wait a little bit before we'll have a final answer. But we are in conversations.
Thank you, and thank you for your report, and thank you to the board officers and our faculty and staff for the work that they put in regarding the response letters.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Handy.
No, actually, I was looking at this, but I think that we also, I don't think the full credit is given to people who were actually responsible for writing this report. I don't really hear that Jason Sepra was a part of this, or Dr. Romanier Johnson, or Dr. Siri Brown, and they're actually the ones who wrote the response and had support, and then there was coordination going on. And I just feel that it's important to acknowledge the efforts of all the people who were participated, especially by name.
I think I
think Salute, I didn't get that at all.
Put together a list of them. I didn't say names, I used titles for them. So the
I think in this case, and something that was so important and that needed to be, with the level of work that was done, I just think that it's important to acknowledge the work of those who are really working to make sure that we look good.
Input well taken. President, anything?
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Chancellor. We will now move on to 3.1. You know, I can't, I just want to make sure that that Trustee Reese and Trustee Withrow, can you hear us, and do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to make sure, and I want to emphasize that the draft going through a proper vetting process actually means that we are going to go through a proper participatory process with that draft, number one. And then number two, since the update needs to be sent to the commission in March and the final in May, we need the chancellor and his administration to ensure that we have a detailed plan that will talk about how we're going to get to the March update and the final in May with meetings and objectives so that we have a framework through which we can accomplish those goals.
Thank you for that. And that's in response to ACCJC. Chancellor, do you have, I don't know that we've seen a timeline presented, but we did see the dates.
Yeah, we did provide a summary of a timeline. Of course, that needs to be fleshed out more. But certainly we have a good start. And I think the trustee Napoli Abela Ruiz comment is well taken. We do need to go through the vetting process, especially with this one. We had to do it rush, and our shared governance body was not exactly excited about how quickly we did it. So we need to spend a whole lot more time on it. And we have a timeline in terms of different meetings where some of this work will take place.
Thank you. And again, just to reemphasize that this is an initial response that was an outline that's to be more fully developed as a 5-year action plan. Thank you. If that concludes, no more questions? That concludes our Chancellor's report. Thank you, Chancellor. And we'll move into public hearing. 3.1, sunshining of contract reopeners from the district to SEIU, 10-1. And just as for just a bit more information, so pursuant to Government Code 3547, the public shall have an opportunity to comment on the district's notice to SEIU Local 10-1 for full contract negotiations. This item was sunshined at the December 11th, 2018 regular board meeting pursuant to Government Code 3547A. We will move on to item 4.1, bond presentation. Chancellor? You want me to gavel? We gavel in and we gavel out. And seeing no comments from the public, we will gavel out. Thank you. I always forget that part. It's fun though, huh? Yeah. Chancellor, we'll move on to 4.1.
I'd like for, if you don't mind, Madam President, to do 4.3 before 4.1. We have some guests that have been waiting with Vice Chancellor Whitaker.
So can we state for the record, we're moving 4.3, analysis of in-house security services and contract services models, and our presenter is VC Whitaker.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Executive Cabinet members, and members of the public. I am honored tonight to present to you regarding the district's current safety model. Following the district's board meeting on December 11th, it was requested that I assist in the evaluation of the district's current safety model and provide an additional evaluation on any proposed changes to that model. As it will be discussed as part of tonight's presentation, it's imperative to first define any actual challenges that exist in our current safety model so that we can determine if any proposed changes will adequately address any of the challenges that we discover. In order to be responsive to the board's request, I enlisted the assistance of the management Strategies Group of the Sloan Sakai, Young, and Wong firm. Presenting alongside me tonight, I have Mr. Bob Dice, Managing Consultant. Mr. Dice has 34 years public servant experience managing cities and counties in 3 states. His last public service role was managing the city of Stockton, and he is now a troubleshooting consultant for public agencies throughout California. In addition, here with me tonight, I have Mr. Jim Lill, public safety consultant. He has 33 years of public safety service. For 9 years, he served as the police chief for Newark, and he is currently the interim police chief for Nevada City. In preparing for tonight's presentation, the 3 of us reviewed the district's current safety model and conducted an analysis of additional organizational and security structures throughout the Bayton colleges. Additionally, and as recently as this morning, I requested a copy of any work product that had been completed on the district's current safety model and any proposed changes to a new safety model. Following Mr. Lill and Mr. Dice's presentation this evening, I will walk you through additional data to highlight human resources considerations as well as risk management considerations that we must all take into effect and account for if we decide to change our security model. And with that being said, I will turn the mic over to Mr. Dice and Mr. Lill.
To the right?
Yes, to the right and then to the back.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Before I begin my part of the presentation, Vice Chancellor Whitaker went through the timelines pretty quickly, but we were presented with this challenge just before the holidays of assisting you, providing some contextual information to help you decide what to do with the ABC contract that's before you. Just before the holidays, so we asked to get all written materials, and we got a stack of things that have been done to date, and we relied heavily on that, as well as contracts and other things. But we did not have a chance to interview all the principals because they were either out of the country or unavailable. So it's a paper review only at this stage. We had a chance last night to talk with the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, the management staff, along with Vice Chancellor Whitaker, which provided some more details. But the key components of the safety models in front of you, you've got a contract that's lasting till the 19th, June 30th, 19. The ABC contract, as you know, unfortunately is ready to be terminated in a week. You have campus aides that are district employees. Your total budget is $5 million. This is not the slideshow. Can you back up and put it in the slideshow format? Of course. Okay, all right. Little technical difficulty, I apologize. There was a slideshow that was part of this that is not operating right now. So these are the listing of items that typically people start getting concerned about public safety. The first one is a major tragic event that occurs that gets people to change the way they're doing business. And unfortunately, there was a death of a Peralta officer back in 1995, and I think it's no coincidence in 1996, you changed service models for the public safety system. An uptick in crime without an adequate response and a plan by those perceived as responsible gets people's interests and concerns, and that's tied to the third bullet. When there's a lack of communication and data and regular engagement with the stakeholders, along with an uptick in crime, then in that vacuum comes anecdotal information, rumors, concerns, and fears. Sometimes service contracts, when you have a contract model, sometimes if it's not well written and clearly articulating expectations, that becomes part of the concern. Contract management sometimes is part of the issue. There's people that do nothing but contract management. That's a skill set that needs to be practiced. What that means is monthly meetings, required reports on activities, using that data to develop reports and annual plans and work plans in front of the Board of Trustees. Sometimes it's poor contractor performance, sometimes it's environmental considerations, sometimes the height and level of concern in the campus is associated with what's going on in the community. You can't separate the campus from the community. The community finds its way through the campus. So when there's something going on outside, sometimes that's a concern inside the campus. And cost increases without context obviously raises concerns. So 3 sort of basic observations when we're reading this packet. One is, in order to evaluate options for your public safety model for the future, it's going to require substantial review of the facts, and it's a collaborative effort between HR, General Services, and we recommend you hire a public safety expert with project management experience. Because this is a project, a complicated project, from beginning to end. Consultation and collaboration with the sheriff and ABC is important. They're on the street. They're interacting with the stakeholders. They have data. They need to be partners in this conversation. And then a multi-step methodical process that I'm going to go through is important as well to get at options. There's really 3 basic steps how we view this Peralta question. The first one is, what's the problem? What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? And if there isn't a problem, how about getting the question answered, how are we doing? Providing specifics, maybe there's some areas that need changing, but not the whole thing. Step 2 is develop options to address the findings in step 1. And there's different responses based on what we uncover. If it's crime rates, it may be a different deployment strategy or increased use of the sheriff or ABC resources. If people are unhappy with the interaction with the providers of the services, then that suggests some training, some more supervisors, change in staff. So each finding produces possible scenarios or solutions. And then once you develop a strategy, then it's time for implementation. And the implementation is driven by how much change do you want to have happen. So step 1 is the framework. What's the problem? Is it crime rates? Let's look at the data. Is it response time? These providers should have good data. Quality of the interaction, calls for service reports, complaints, training, the policy of these providers, all play into this conversation about what's the interaction, what's it like. Perceptions, a valid survey, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Informal group meetings, some of this has been done by administration. Is it cost? A survey of like campuses would inform us if we're out of whack with everybody else, if we're out of line, and if we're out of line, where is it? Some other activities listed here: engage the stakeholders, the providers, considering working with the sheriff's office to do some of the analysis, compare crime data, interview stakeholders, like I said, campus presidents are important, review the survey methods and consider whether we can rely on those or redoing them, be curious about the results of the listening sessions, call data. Basically, at the end of step 1, we're going to be answering, how are we doing? And the variables we're going to be talking about are crime rates, response times, quality of the interaction with providers, perceptions of the stakeholders, and cost. Some other questions that kind of came up when we were reviewing the paperwork. Who's the chief of police? Who's responsible for public safety services and outcomes? Who's the one person responsible? It's unclear who that is. And then that relates to the second bullet. You have a lieutenant. What's the expectation? What's the role of the lieutenant? That's a highly skilled, highly paid, highly experienced staff person. What is the role of the lieutenant in this Peralta model? There's some basic expectations in the contract, complying with the Clery Act, brochures, etc. But what are we doing with that information? Are we using it to communicate and add value to that conversation with people in the Peralta system? What is the chain of command with ABC and police aides? We think they should be coordinated with your police chief. With respect to doing analysis in the sheriff's office, you pay $424,000 of indirect costs. If we ask them to do some analysis, can we get a credit against that $424,000 to help pay for that? Just a question. The second to the last bullet, why is the staff report different with respect to numbers when compared to the sheriff contract and when it went before you? We got the answers from the sheriff's office last night. You were thinking about adding staff and you chose not to at the end. Here's a key one. It appears the sheriff's contract is buying people. It's not a particular service per se. You're buying people. And so the question is what's the minimum and what's the typical staffing levels you get through the year? Here's why that's important when you're comparing models. Since you're buying people, okay, you're paying them for 2,080 hours a year. But typically, around 1,700 to 1,750 is actual productive time on the job. The rest of the time is sick leave, vacation, holidays that you're paying for. So the productive time is something different. So what happens during the sick leave, vacation, and holidays? Well, holidays, they don't provide the service, but sick leave, vacation, they do. They let the staffing might go down a little bit until it reaches a critical mass, and then they bring people from Alameda Sheriff's Office to backfill. And why that's important is if you want to consider doing an in-house model, you got to produce the basic staffing level, but you also have to provide a resource for that 380 hours where somebody's off sick leave, vacation, and training. That's why it's important to understand and get an apples-to-apples comparison when you do this analysis. What data does the sheriff have, ABC have, that describes the quantity and quality of the service? That's important in this discussion. In ABC, the contract's a little different. They're actually providing a service. They're saying during these hours, you're going to get one person. During these hours, you might get two people. So you're getting a service level. You're not paying for the downtime, the non-productive time. So if you're going to bring that in-house, you're going to have to replicate that. And it's more complicated than just if you're hiring 5 security officers under contract and bringing them in-house. You're going to have to bring in 5 plus some more to pay for that non-productive time. So you're going from a service contracted to an in-house model. You got to make sure you cover the apples-to-apples relationship. Any contemplated change in the police officer staffing should be grounded in the data, calls for service, visibility, and it's directly related to how many security officers you have. They're tied together. I mentioned the survey. There was a survey done, and I thought that was a great, I would have done the same thing. Survey is a great way to capture how people feel. But the key is how you administer that survey. If you put it on SurveyMonkey and you say, all comers, fill it out, what happens is the people that feel strongly about something, they'll fill it out. The people that don't feel strongly about it, they don't fill it out. So it'll tell you about the people that actually filled it out, how they feel, but you can't extrapolate from that on how your students feel, your faculty feel, unless you do truly a random survey where when I was a city manager, we want to poll citizens. We would randomly pick citizens and ask those questions. And then you could do that and extrapolate and say within 5%, that's how the rest of the universe feels. So I'm not sure how the survey went here, but it's critical to understand that. The listening sessions, I think, are valuable. It'd be nice to hear about that. Sheriff and the ABC have not been engaged in this analysis to date. I think they should be partners because they have good information. Here's a key. When you contract with somebody, you only get as much as you ask for and you expect from them. So what are you doing in the contract management area? Are you meeting monthly? Do you have statistics? Are you holding people accountable? Are you developing plans and holding them against those plans, those metrics? So the contract management is a key piece of this, not just the provider. So that's step one. Step two, based on what we come up with as step one, will guide us on where we go on options. And it may be a change in the contract, may be a recommendation. It may be a change in this, the staffing rubric. I don't know, but step one will give us that direction. So step two will give you some options and a realistic time frame on how to implement it. And so step one and step two will probably take somewhere between 4 to 6 months if you do it right and you have all the pieces together. And then step three is the actual implementation. And the factors to consider here, and I think this relates to your ABC decision. Changing security contractors could take you from 6 to 9 months, depending upon how you do your RFPs, and then there's an overlap, a transition with the old provider and the new provider. If you're changing police contractors, roughly 9 to 12 month process. If you're going in-house for like police officers, it's an 18-month to 24-month process. A lot of people don't realize if you bring in somebody that's a young person that wants to be a police officer, you send them to the academy for 6 months, and then you put them on field training. They're not allowed to be by themselves for at least a year. So you're spending resources before they even get out there on the street. So that's why there's that 18-month to 24-month time estimate. Upfront costs, be very careful about evaluating the cost. The upfront costs are going to be enormous. Buying vehicles at $50,000 a piece. 8 vehicles, $400,000. And immediately, once you start using those vehicles, you have to start setting aside money to replace them when they become too old. There's records management, there's academy training, safety equipment, all that infrastructure that contractors already take care of. You just got to be willing to fund it and cost it out. Personnel and liability risks, a big deal with officers. How that impacts you is a function of how many claims you have once you have an in-house model. And if the claims start coming in, your costs are gonna take off. Here's one: if personnel are armed, or better yet, if they're not armed, depending upon what they do as part of your model, you'll get pressure to eventually arm them. For example, probation officers, when I was a county administrator, park rangers, they provided a role like your campus security officers. They weren't armed, but it was an issue that came up in every bargaining session. They wanted guns, and that would be a difficult decision you'll have to make, whether that adds safety or reduces safety. Personnel costs, you have to create a new MOU, you have the job descriptions, etc. If it's officers you're bringing in-house, you got to have a nice mixture between experience and new people. And there's trade-offs. With experienced officers, if you hire them, they're less expensive in the short term because you're not sending them to the academy. But long term, they're very expensive because they got pension costs that are very, very high. But young officers, they're inexperienced, you're spending money to send them to the academy and you're not getting anything for them, but long term they're cheaper because the pension costs are lower. Security officers, if you bring that in-house, the key in comparing apples to apples, you take what will be higher labor costs. I guarantee you your labor costs will be higher than what you pay the security officers just for labor. But when you bring them in-house, you're not paying for profit. So you got to compare the higher labor costs versus the lower labor costs as a contract plus profit margin, and then compare the two. Workers' compensation is a really big deal with in-house police departments. Very expensive. There's a provision in state law, if one of your officers gets injured, a lot of times it's presumed the job caused that injury, and for a year, they can stay home and actually get a pay increase because of provisions of 4850, and that could be expensive, and then that would require backfilling. How other districts provide services is important, and both Vice Chancellor Whitaker and I did some review, but I'm going to pass it back to Vice Chancellor to go over her data. We provided a little bit of a summary of that.
Still there?
Yep. No giggling.
Human Resources conducted a very high-level overview.
Sorry, Chancellor Whitaker, can you move the mic towards you? Just pull
Sure.
it, yeah, pull it in. Thank you.
Or no. Human Resources conducted a high-level overview of police services programs for the Bayton community colleges to examine security programs that could be possible for the district. This report includes information on the following areas: organizational structure, job classifications, position costs, bargaining units, and other cost considerations. For the sake of time, I won't go through all of the 9 colleges and their security structures, so I will just pick out a few. I'll start with the top. Chabot Las Positas. Chabot College employs a director of campus safety who is a Hayward Police Department sergeant. The position is contracted with the city of Hayward. The Hayward Police Department sergeant acts in the capacity of an administrator for the district. He currently reports to the director of the college president. He currently reports directly to the college president. Las Positas College employs a supervisor of campus safety, and he is a member of the unrepresented classified supervisors and reports to the college president of the college vice president of business services. I'll move to the third one on the list, Contra Costa. Contra Costa has a chief of police that manages safety operations district-wide and works directly under the executive vice chancellor for administrative services. Each campus has a police lieutenant in charge of police and parking operations, and police service staff are employed by the district. Ohlone. Ohlone has a peace officer standard and training program that is accredited by the police department. It is headed by the chief of police, who reports to the vice chancellor of administrative services. The department consists of police officers and classified safety officers that are responsible for campus security, traffic and parking, crime prevention, detection, and law enforcement. San Francisco has a full-service police department that provides law enforcement and security services for 12 locations. It employs post-certified police officers who have full-time peace officer arrest authority, and the chief police department reports to the vice chancellor of finance and administration. And the last one on the list here, West Valley Mission. They have a post-certified full-service law enforcement agency, and they employ police officers who provide law enforcement 7 days per week from 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. The district maintains a memorandum of understanding with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office Department and the Santa Clara County Police Department regarding investigative responsibilities and hours of operation. Their police chief reports to the Vice Chancellor of Administrative Services, and the department employs classified staff for parking services. And I just want to reiterate that the current security model that we have, the only employees, so to speak, that report to the district are our campus safety aides, and they are student workers. As we all know, the Sheriff's Department are not employees of the district currently, and the deputies and the site supervisors that we get through ABC Security are not employees of the district. As we did a further analysis, these are the common safety positions that we found throughout the Bay 10 colleges. Positions that are under the management and supervisory classifications are the chief of police and the lieutenant. Positions that are non-management were the police sergeants, the police officers. And then those positions that were classified were the campus safety officers, lead safety officers, the police dispatchers, and the police support services coordinator. Our office did a minimum and maximum analysis of the salaries for the security models of all the Bay 10 colleges. But I want to reiterate, we cannot look at salary alone. And this is a very, very rough estimate based on the information that we were able to receive over the break. But these salaries do not take into consideration the experience level that any officer or lieutenant or sergeant would have if we were to go with an in-house model. For the chief of police, you can see that the minimum salary was $112,710, whereas the maximum salary was $146,256. For a police officer, the minimum salary was $69,646, whereas the maximum salary was $91,897. And then to compare the dispatcher, the minimum salary was $36,206 and $46,290. And I want to reiterate something that Mr. Dice said. When we're looking at the experience level of which individuals to bring if we should choose an in-house model, we have to determine what type of authority our individuals would have, because that also determines the pay differential if our employees are armed, whether they're not armed, if they have arrest authority or if they don't have arrest authority. Those are just a few of the things that we have to take into consideration when looking at salary. In order to come to an estimated position cost for what an in-house model could possibly look like for Peralta, we budgeted the medical benefits based on the district's current PPO Light and dental plan with the employee plus a family. And again, these figures are very, very rough estimates. And again, once we determine the security level and the authority level, the experience level of the type of employees we would want to have, we would definitely have to go back and redo these figures. For the administrator health benefits rates, we use those for the chief of police and the lieutenant. And so the next slide here is what a salary composition could possibly look like. And again, we took the minimum salary and the maximum salary and did an average. So if we were to hire an in-house chief of police, for an average salary, we were looking at $129,483 with a benefits cost of $88,051 with a total compensation of $217,534. And I'll skip down to the dispatcher. An average salary of $41,446, a benefits cost of $51,305 with a total compensation package of $92,751. And something that we discussed last night during our very lengthy conversation with the Sheriff's Department was the difference in our current benefit package to their benefit package. And one of the things that stood out was for an administrator here at the district, we currently get 22 days of paid vacation. With the Sheriff's Department, they get 5 weeks of vacation, and that is a very big difference. And so one of the things that we discussed as being a significant thing that we would have to take into consideration is the benefit package. So it has to be an apples for apples comparison, as Mr. Dice said. We can't just look at salary and compare it to our current benefit package. We would have to make it competitive to benefit packages in the market for security officers. In looking at different bargaining unit considerations, in the 90s, when the district had an in-house security model, they were represented by a local 790, which is now SEIU. With the different Bay 10 colleges, here are some of the different units that they were represented by. The California School of Employees Association, Teamsters Local 287, Foothill De Anza Police Officers Association, the Association of Classified Employees, Local 1, and the Police Officers Association. I contacted CalPERS because obviously working in human resources, I know that different positions require different tiers for CalPERS. And in speaking with CalPERS, the district would be required to pay significantly more in contribution for any employee that we would employ under this security model than we do our current employees. So that is something that we would have to take into consideration, obviously, in addition to salary. We'd have to take into consideration uniform allowances, the cost for safety supplies and vehicles, training, overtime, and a few other things that Mr. Dice already went through. Again, in speaking with the sheriff's office last night, one of the things we talked about were the cost of the vehicles and how that cost could be extravagant if we went with an in-house model. One thing they let us know is in order to save the district costs, we have 3 vehicles that they've already paid the depreciation on. They are not new vehicles, and they are saving us about $100,000 a year because they brought these vehicles from other districts where the depreciation had already been paid. So if we were to go with an in-house model, we would likely be required to buy all new vehicles, brand new vehicles, which would be an exorbitant cost for the district. In speaking with our in speaking with our Workers' Compensation Authority last night, they also informed me that an additional cost, which would be ongoing, would be a $20,000 to $30,000 increase in our workers' compensation premiums. However, as any security personnel started to file claims, our rates would likely go through the roof. Right now, that is not something that we have to take into consideration with the Sheriff's Department and ABC because they are not our employees. So what I want to leave you with tonight is it's very easy for us to say that, yes, we could get bodies for cheaper. Yes, we could. But we also have to take all these other things into consideration. CalPERS uniforms, legal liability, workers' compensation, CalPERS contributions, and all of the many items that Mr. Dice spoke with us about. And so following our presentation, I would like to ask for direction for the board in moving forward because I know that our security and the safety of this district is a very serious matter of concern, and we want to get you the answer as soon as possible so that you can make the decision that you need to make moving forward. Sure.
We're going to show one more slide. It was in my PowerPoint, slide number 19. And it gets to one key reason why the Vice Chancellor brought us in, and that is your ABC contract. You have that on your agenda today. The feedback that we have for you is one piece of the Peralta public safety model should not be changed without taking into account the entire system. Now, I'm not to say changing contractors, going from contractor to contractor, that's no big change other than the provider. But if you're going to go from contracted to in-house model, we're suggesting you shouldn't do that without taking into context your entire plan for public safety for the next 10 years. And then if you believe my estimate that step 1 and step 2 of this analysis would take roughly 6 months, then we're suggesting that maybe you ought to extend the ABC contract for at least 6 months. And in fact, if you made a decision 6 months from now, we want to go this way instead of that way, reality is it's going to take another 6 months to 9 months to go that way. So one could argue you could even extend the contract a year instead of 6 months. And that might provide you some implicit benefits in that the provider might be having a hard time keeping staff when they don't know how long they're going to be around. And so providing a year, I think, would be a safe extension option as well. And then as we go through this project, us or whoever you pick, if you find things that you're not unhappy with, you can always amend the contracts that you have now. So with that, we are going to open up for questions. And as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, we also have Jim Leal here as the public safety expert.
Thank you for that. I will open up for questions as soon as my trustees come back.
For the chair.
Yes, Trustee Withrow.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very extensive. But if you could go back over the estimated position costs that were projected, and what we've got, you're showing benefit costs anywhere from 70% to 125% of the average salary. How does that occur, and how does that differentiate from what ours is? Roughly 30%?
Right now, our benefit cost, it depends on the position and the salary of the individual. So it's a percentage right now with the district.
Right, but I think his question, Trustee Withrow, do you want to restate your question? I don't think it was answered.
Withrow, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, yes. I couldn't hear it before.
Okay.
What was the question?
Restate your question.
Okay. On the estimated position costs for the Peralta Community College District, and they're talking about a chief of police making $129 with a benefit cost of $88,000. That's about 70%. For a dispatcher, $41,400 with a benefit cost of $51,000, which is about 125%. How does that occur? I've never seen a breakout like that in any context.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. So yes, like I stated earlier, currently for Peralta employees, benefits are a percentage of the salary. So it depends on which benefit program an employee would choose. For this analysis, we use the PPO Lite and the Delta Dental Employee plus a family. So that particular benefit plan would cost the district more than, let's say, if someone did not have a family or if they were on our HMO plan with Kaiser. In addition to the medical benefits, we also have other benefits that are on a slated percentage. We have CalPERS. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of the different percentages that we have. We have CalPERS, we have different liability insurance that is a percentage of an employee's contract. And the higher the salary, of course, the higher the benefit package would be. But again, we took these minimum and maximum salaries for the Bay 10, and we put them into Peralta's current benefit model estimated calculator to get these percentage rates. So for the dispatcher that you speak about, the dispatcher salary is much less than the chief of police. But our administrator benefits are different than our classified benefits, and so that has to be taken into consideration as well. The benefits for an administrator are more expensive than for a classified. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Now, is that true across the board for our 2,000 employees?
That administrator.
We have that kind of a relationship between average salary and the benefits?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have Trustee Weinstein and then Trustee Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. It's really very helpful and will take me a little while to absorb. But I have a few questions, but you described like 6 or 7 different colleges and what their structure is like. So when I look at it, it looks like they have different structures, and some of them have kind of a combination.
Yes.
Yeah, hybrid model. So when you're giving us the information, it seems like you're giving us either or. But is it possible to have a hybrid model?
Absolutely it is. And sometimes that is the best model because you can get the best of both worlds.
Okay. And the other question is, right now, we're paying how much for our public safety services?
Roughly $5 million for the entire model.
For the entire model, okay. And it's for people, not services?
It's for both.
It's for both, okay. And if we were to do the in-house, what's the estimation of cost?
At this time, we don't have an estimation of cost because we don't yet know what model would be best for the district. So once we determine what model would be best and how many bodies we need, we will be able to give a better cost analysis on that. And in addition to just salary, we'd also have to find out what type of equipment, vehicles, uniforms, training, all of that would have to occur, and then we could give you a more definite cost analysis.
Okay, well, you know, I know and I'm sure every trustee is very concerned about this, and we're obviously very concerned about safety on our campuses. So I want to thank you for giving us this information. I will assume that it is not only once there's an incident, but we're also talking about prevention. And that's a really important part of our safety plan, should be an important part of our safety plan. I'm not sure where the 2 models come in, but I would hope that we could get some information about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Trustee Brown.
Thank you very much for the report. I appreciate the collaboration or the involvement of the HR department in this process. It's been a multi-year effort to try and get to the point that we could get this type of analysis, and it is very in-depth, and we appreciate it. And we understand that there was a scramble to some extent to try and get this to us. So we appreciate you giving up your holiday and working to give us this analysis. I do have a question regarding the learning environment and the particular training. We mentioned I saw the post-training, which is, of course, the standard with respect to law enforcement. As I saw that there was, the standard, of course, is the post-training, the police officer standards training. But we have our mission, our environment, our campuses have additional concerns and requirements that are often not quantified or enumerated in any in the standards that would be applicable to a municipality or to a county. And I think that in order for us to make an analysis regarding an educational institution, we would need to be able to consider the learning environment. We'd need to consider the learning environment both for the level of comfort that students feel on campus at night, safety, which is something that Trustee Weinstein spoke about, but also the comfort that the students have, and of course our faculty and staff with the officers that are there to provide that safety, to provide that support. And for the last, I've been a trustee for 5 years. For the last 5 years, there's also been trainings that I've gone to, unfortunately, that have to do with crisis management, and not just natural disasters, but also crises that have occurred in higher educational institutions in our nation. And so what I'm wondering about, all that prologue to say, is there a way that we could possibly, and you know, that you throw one more person into it, it creates a whole new analysis, but our Vice Chancellor of Student Services has his finger on the pulse of the environment, the learning environment in our campus temperature, and that is something that is an effectual part of student success. And what I'd like to know is, to what extent does the environment, can our security and safety support students feeling safe on campus, but also feeling empowered and feeling accepted, feeling welcomed, and also we have a training program for safety and security, and the incorporation of that training that we have, an excellent program at Merit. I'm wondering about, as an educational institution, how are we advancing or how can we advance our mission? And so that's a lot. That's like a whole nother study. I understand that, and I do apologize, but I had to put it out there because we can't, it's more than dollars, it's more than the benefits, and it's what are we creating as an institution? And so, Jason, I think I just drafted you, my dear.
Can I actually add something to that? I really appreciate you mentioning that, because I think security is not just about policing, but we have items like sexual assault that we have to deal with, the proactive and awareness type of campaign that we have to do a lot more, the programming. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. It's not just the policing. How do we make students feel comfortable with security, safety, which includes personal safety, minority safety? How do we make our campus secure but not feel like it's prison, or the uniform could be a lot different? So, being more cautious about the environment of how we program security. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to collaborate in how do we make that cultural change.
Okay, see, he said, y'all heard that, right?
Trustee Reese, and then Trustee Gonzalez went in the queue.
Great, what's already been said. Thank you very much for this incredible presentation. Given the short timeline in which you were given to actually complete this, I have to say that it was very comprehensive and has really brought forth questions that we need to ask ourselves about our current structure. I have a question that's related to two sub-questions. And the question that I have, and I'm not sure who can answer this, is who actually is responsible for the security and for the safety services and our contracts with them? Because I think I'm a little surprised when we had our December 11 meeting. I had gotten the impression from Vice Chancellor Icaro that he was going to do this presentation. He had much of the information already. So I'm a little surprised that there was a scramble to get this together, and that you are, Vice Chancellor Whitaker, presenting this. But the other question I also have is, given the reflective questions that this presentation has brought forth, which discusses surveys, conversations, evaluations, expectations with the officers and with our security contractors, that should have been done, that should be done, and should have been done. My question becomes, whose purview is that? Because regardless of what model we go with, our current model, a hybrid model, a different model, we need to ensure, from what I'm hearing, that who we contracted is clear on the expectations and is part of an evaluation process and is also assessed through proper surveys. So the purview and the responsibility needs to, I would imagine, lie on someone. And my question is, who? So I'm not sure who can answer that.
Let me answer that. Chancellor? Okay.
Trustee, this is the Chancellor, Joël Laguerre. So that is under the leadership of Vice Chancellor Icaro. The reason why we changed the presentation is because we wanted it to have a more human resources focus, which the board has been asking for a little while, than a technical one, which is what Dr. Icaro could have presented. He has been working with a group of individuals where they've done, some work that will still be very valuable to us in moving forward. But for this particular, because the board has been waiting for this particular presentation, having a human resources focus, that's the reason why we made the change. and had asked Vice Chancellor Whitaker to not only provide the information, but also make the presentation on it.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any other questions? Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you. I think what I want to do is echo some of what Trustee Brown just said, and to note that, well, first of all, to appreciate the work. It was done very quickly, and what it tells, I think, the board is that where there is the will, things happen quickly. Now, I realize that what you've done is you've put together more questions than answers, and that's, I think, appropriate. I think what you've laid out is that if the board wants the administration to go in this direction, it's going to take some time. I think you're optimistic in how quickly it could even be done, and it's going to take some resources to do that. So I think that's really, it's a good starting place. The one thing that I would add to emphasize is that I think that this is, in fact, a real opportunity, as Trustee Brown points out. It's not only a learning opportunity for students, but it's also an opportunity for the campuses as a whole, through a process of shared governance, to envision what would a safe community look like. And within the context of a community college, how do we do that? Not separating ourselves from the community, not separating ourselves from the students, and not treating students or the community as the problem. But really envisioning this in a whole way. So I'm hoping as this process moves forward that reach is made, that broadening of vision is made. I think sometimes that what happens from a law enforcement perspective, and I'm not a law enforcement person, so forgive me if I'm stereotyping, but I think that sometimes what happens from a law enforcement perspective is because so much of your interactions are with the problem, everybody begins to look like the problem. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but I think of my wife, who's a psychologist, and she's dealt with mental health issues for her whole life. And so, when she looks at a situation, she looks at it that way. I think if we re-envision this and expand it, I think we could come up with something that'll really work. And so I'm excited that you've begun to lay out these questions. What I'm hoping is that if, in fact, we move forward, this presentation or some version of it goes to the campuses for input and engagement, et cetera. I think we'll find something that works. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? And with that, I also thank all three of you for providing such a rich set of information for us to review and consider. I also would ask the Chancellor and his team to not lose this information that was brought forward. This sounds like a good starting point, as you've heard from some of my other colleagues on the board. And in addition to all the various models that we heard, I was really pleased to hear VC Sifra talk about how this presents more of an opportunity for not just policing, but for how we interface and engage with our students and our community. So I really appreciate that. And it looks like we do have an opportunity here to use some of the information that was brought forward to renegotiate current contracts with new information and ask really good, critical information regarding to data, and letting that data drive some of the priorities on how we go into contract with folks for and with vendors and service providers. So, good information. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I believe we are at
4.1.
It's a presentation that I started trying to present to the board several weeks ago, and I'm glad that we will be able to do it tonight. However, I will certainly do my best to go as quickly as I can. You have a copy of the presentation, so there are things that I will definitely skip so that we capture some time for tonight. The first slide that we have talks about what we talk about, so we don't have to talk about that. The next one is about Measure G. So we want to express our gratitude to the voters for what they've done for us by approving $800 million worth of bond. We want to express our gratitude and pledge that we will do our very best to make sure that we show them that we deserve their support. The measure passed on November 6th. We all know that. So we have the bonds for new facilities, modernization, as well as information technology. The proceeds for the bonds are authorized by this proposition shall be used only for construction, reconstruction. Again, you have that. This is pretty much language from the ballot that wanted to share and remind all of us of. And I want to go over briefly a tentative list of projects, but I want to highlight 4 in particular. We have 2 projects that are supported by the state in addition to Measure G. So this is a way for us to not only have $800 million, but also to have to increase that by a whole lot more. So we have the Lenny Library, which is supported by additional state funding. Merit Child Development Center is also supported by additional state funding. And these have short timelines on them. So we will be asking the board to allow us to move quicker with these 2 projects because of the state funding. And then we have a third project, which is the Aviation Maintenance Center from College of Alameda, which we also need to move quickly on because, as you may recall, we received a grant for $3 million for this particular project. The fourth one that's not on the slides that I want to make sure that I bring out is Milvia property out at Berkeley City College. It's a property that we purchased that we wanted to remodel and bring different services there, but there is new thinking about what we need to do with it. It's one that once we decide what exactly we want to do, I'd like also for the board to look at that project along with the other 3 to move as fast as we can on that. So that would give us 4 projects that we need to move quickly on with. We'll have some district-wide projects. You see the list there. Again, the list came from the ballot language. And then more district-wide projects that we want to look at and work on. And so for the colleges, we start with Berkeley City College. At one point, we were looking at renovating the 3rd floor of Milvia because we didn't have enough money in Measure A to finish that up. But there's new thinking about what we want to do with Milvia. Again, as I suggested, I would consider that as one of the 4 projects that we want to move quickly with. College of Alameda has
the following projects that you see. I just mentioned to you the aviation complex. That's one that we have additional funding for that we need to work on. And then the Performing Arts Center, there is a potential for some partnership with the community on that. We will be bringing that information to you shortly, so we can consider that as well as another way for us to do more with the bond funds that we have. And then at Laney, these are some of the projects that we are looking at. A Student and Welcome Center has been on the list for Measure A. We didn't have enough funds to complete it, and so this Measure G will give us the opportunity to be able to do that. And then you see some additional infrastructure that we need at Laney. And then here are some new as well as projects we want to, buildings we want to remodel. The, again, library is of critical and urgent need that we definitely want to move forward with as soon as we possibly can. And then we go to Merritt College. Again, the funded project is the Combined Child Care Center and Child Development Center, so we want to make sure that this project gets moving as soon as we possibly can. And then for all of the bond projects, there are different activities that we need to do to clean soil and what have you. So those are listed as well as projects. And then planning, designing, and all of that we need to do with the projects. In terms of next steps of where we want to go, the colleges and their governance will use their governance process to review the list, and the presidents will meet with their constituents to re-verify and recheck their priorities. Although we have some, again, we have 4 projects that we definitely want to move forward with right away, which gives us 1 at each of the colleges. In terms of rolling out the bond project, one of the things that the board had already approved through resolution is to have an advisory committee form of membership from internal and external constituents. So we will be working with our shared governance process and bringing that kind of recommendation to you, as well as having a team dedicated to the bond projects. And you see some of the categories of potential employees that may be needed for the projects. And then having a program management company to help us roll out the projects and manage the bond, as well as construction companies that we're going to need at all of our colleges so that the projects can be done as soon as possible. We really endeavor to learn from others who have been successful in implementing bonds, and to learn from them as we develop the structure that we want to implement. And we need to definitely impress the community with what we do, because we have more needs that we'll go out for one of these days. So it's important for us to show that we have done and we are doing really well with the new bond that we have. In terms of tentative timeline, we are about a month behind from where I had thought that we could be. So conversations with shared governance committees that we need to have, we'll continue to have, and development of a team lead job description, board workshops on bond measure. We want to provide the board at every board meeting an update on where we are with the bond, and then engage the board within, not only in the planning, but also in the rolling out of the bond project. So we have, for each month, we have different things that we'd like to get going. And then all the way to month of July, And we think around that time we'll start looking at projects and things that we're going to do. One thing that's important to the board and to us is really shared governance process that we want to do. The colleges, through the facilities master plan, engaged the college shared governance process, and we did a lot of work to come up with the list of projects that we have. As we look at the projects themselves and we're going to implement them, continuing to involve the shared governance process both at the colleges and at the district level will be very necessary. Advisory group that I've shared with you, but in addition to the advisory group, we will have the facilities committee, district facilities committee, district technology committee. The planning and budgeting committee will be involved with the process, as well as the participatory governance council will be involved as well. It's important for us to make sure we provide accurate and good information to the board. So making presentations using inside and outside groups at board meetings to share with the board where we are and provide great information for the board so that in making decisions, you can do that with all the knowledge necessary. So we again want on a regular basis provide information about the bond program in terms of where we're going to go. I'll talk about PLA very quickly in one of the next slides. Negotiation of project labor agreement, also called PLA. We negotiate our district's current project labor agreement, and we want to make sure that it is based on current district's needs, best practices in PLAs in California, so we can learn from others. And then we want to make sure that our negotiation looks at cost control, ease of administration of the agreement, employment and training policy objectives, especially when it comes to local hiring, business development and policy objectives, integration of district technical programs, career technical education program with training and employment opportunities for district-funded projects. That one is an important one for us because what happened is that we have career technical education programs. We have construction programs. We have accounting and different aspects of the industry at our colleges. Seldom do we tie that with the projects that we have. With $800+ million, I believe that we have a great opportunity to really make it happen. However, it's not going to happen by just wishing that it will happen, but we need to plan for it. We need to develop policies about it. We need to talk about it. We need to make real efforts to make sure that it happens, and we need to dedicate resources so that it can happen. That is something that really want to emphasize, and as we move forward, you will get more information about that. We want development of targeted employment and contracting policies. Again, not just having and negotiating them, but really establish the infrastructure so that we can implement the policies that we have around local hires, and again, tying the hiring with the different programs that we have at Peralta. Development of community benefits policies applicable to public-private partnerships. That is something we'll be providing information to the board about, and spending really some quality time developing options for policies. Policies that should be established by the board so that we can We make sure that the implementation is there. And then setting a baseline of expectations regarding community benefits. And benefits will be fine-tuned with regard to particular projects. So depending on the projects that we're going to have, we'll be looking at different benefits. I know this is quick, especially the last 3 slides are really policy considerations that we need to make as we implement the new bond. Again, having over $800 million to implement, we as an education institution and our community that supports us with the bond should take a lot of advantage, should see the benefits of this investment, and it will happen if we take the time to develop the policies and the practices for that to happen. And that concludes my presentation, Madam President.
Thank you, Chancellor. We will open for questions, discussion. Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a couple quick questions. You mentioned the formation of an advisory committee with board approval, and maybe I missed what that was. You mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, so we passed a resolution that we're going to implement the bond with effectiveness and what have you. Part of that is for us to make sure that we have good representation from the different departments that have projects in the bond. For example, you have an advisory committee, you want to make sure, and we have 4 projects that we potentially will be moving on. We want to make sure that these folks are part of that advisory committee, which should also include some external folks that can be advisors for us, because inviting, again, this is community investment in Peralta, having community folks participate in the advisory committee will be very beneficial for that. It is, now it can be confused with the Citizen Oversight Committee. Now here's where it's not. The Citizen Oversight Committee will react to projects that we've done. Did you spend the funds the way that you should have? This group will be providing input into how the funds are being used. So it's really, really different, and I think one that can give us a good insight as we move forward.
So that actually is a nice segue to the next thing. I mean, ultimately, the administration is going to bring recommendations to the board, and the board ultimately makes decisions about how bond funds will be spent.
Correct.
And we've got 4 campuses, a district office. There are a lot of needs. We know we probably got about $2 billion of needs.
1.6 billion.
By the time we get there, it'll be 2. And we only have this paltry $800 million. And I can just see that one of the principal challenges will be how we move forward in a process that leaves everybody feeling included and treated well. So I could see having an advisory group might do that, but if the advisory group is made up of people who are, for example, deeply embedded in the 4 projects that the administration wants to move forward quickly, well, then there will automatically be a bias towards that point of view. And so what I'm encouraging us to think about carefully is how we use a process, some process within the district where we can get away from the thinking in silos and we can really think globally in a way that everybody does feel treated well. And I think that's going to be a real challenge. And I'll just show you, just highlight one thought that I had right away from your presentation. You've got some things listed as district-wide projects and some things listed as college projects. Okay, like facilities for athletics. Great idea. Everybody likes athletics. Some campuses have stronger athletic facilities than others. Why would we think of those as a district-wide project as opposed to a campus project? And so then when we go to begin to say, well, are funds being adequately, equally, equitably distributed among the campuses, what counts as a district-wide project versus what counts as a college project could come into contention. Now, I don't want to litigate that here right now. I'm just flagging it as like, okay, that's going to be a little complicated. That could be contentious. And I really hope that very quickly our shared governance groups and our presidents and our administration can agree on a process that everybody can say, yeah, we trust that process. Because every campus has its list of what it wants, of what it needs. And because there isn't enough money, some campuses are not going to get what they need. And how do we make that decision? So I don't expect an answer right away, but I'll just raise it as a question.
Yeah, and I don't have one either. But definitely that's where having an advisory group could also be very, very helpful on that. But anyway.
And I think an internal shared governance process as the primary driver of what comes to the board, I think will actually be critical.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I outlined for you there that you have shared governance bodies that...
I saw the alphabet soup, and I just didn't know which was the ultimate, like, all right, it's going to go through that one, and that one is going to be the decision-making body.
Yeah, I think
that brings it to the board.
Yeah, the Participatory Governance Council is the top one that you have. That's probably the one that would... we still need to debate, some of that. So
I'm sure.
The fun is about to begin.
Thank you.
That's great. Trustee Weinstein.
Hi, thank you, Chancellor, for that presentation. Its connection to it, underneath it, it has Bond Measures Oversight Committee bylaws and parcel tax bylaws. So I'm a little confused about that versus what we were going to have later on, which we pulled, which was both of those committees and how the membership and all the rest of that. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah, it was an error that that the bylaws and the like appeared where you see them, because we had broken it down into two separate presentations or two separate items. One of them was just the bond presentation,
right.
And the other one was going to be the bylaws and the like. They're really separate. And,
okay. So are we not doing the? 10.1 has been removed. So these two will be removed as well.
They're not part of it.
Okay.
So, yes, it shouldn't have been there.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Chancellor.
Thank you.
Was there Trustee Reese or Trustee Withrow?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Chancellor, for the presentation. A few different items, and I think I'll just go through them, and then you can respond at the end. So, one, I'd like to know, since we have Measure A on there too, and some of the projects that were not completed from Measure A, I'd like to get a sense of, and maybe this is a presentation that could be forthcoming so it's clear in all of our minds, how much is left in Measure A, what projects were completed from Measure A's initial plan, and what projects have not been completed, so that we have a benchmark of how we use the previous monies and going forward. And as you are delineated on this particular presentation, some general ideas and projects that we want to put forth, I think it would be really good to have potential or estimated cost for that, because in a way, I agree with, actually in many ways, I agree with Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen in the sense that $800 million is a lot of money, but it's paltry compared to how much all of this is going to cost. And with so many projects that are there, I think on some level we're being overly ambitious, and if we don't have a sense of what the estimated potential cost could be, I think we're already kind of setting ourselves up for failure. And then the other item is what Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen said just a second ago makes quite a bit of sense. And I never thought about this, but when he had said the possibility of district-wide as well as college-wide being in conflict, I think that we certainly should pay heed to that, in addition to the fourth point being, let's also pay heed to what the District Academic Senate articulated in the presentation earlier, where, number one, they had said that instead of being housed in general services, the possibility of this being housed in finance. And I know that you kind of talked about that a little bit in your presentation in terms of finance being very much a part of this. And then the other point that they articulated earlier in their statement was 5 bond employees and whether that is actually necessary. So for those two things, I don't think I'm looking for a response regarding the DAS statement, but I just want to make sure that we pay heed to that, because that was something that was brought up at the beginning of this meeting and that we don't forget it.
So if I take the last one quickly, one of the statements that I made and considerations that we need to make is really to look at districts that have successfully implemented their bonds and what structure they have used to implement the bonds. I think we can learn a lot from that, and I think members of the shared governance process, academic senate, and all of that can really come together and learn a lot about the best way for us to really implement, and that will take care of word housed and all of that. Yes, for what you asked for in terms of how much is left in Measure A, that's information that we can provide later. And especially as we put the program together, it will be good for us to do that. What was completed, what's not completed yet. I think you see from the state funded projects, those are projects that were not completed under Measure A, but we certainly can give the board a list of those. Now, in terms of the costs, so through our facilities master plan, we did determine what everything was going to cost, and we knew that the cost to take care of the district overall for the next 30 years will be $1.6 billion. And so the $800 million was a conscious effort to go for half of what we needed right now, with the intention of making sure that we get the rest of what we need to support our institutions. But we can provide the cost and all of those, again, for everyone to see and have them as ongoing information that we provide for everybody.
Thank you, Chancellor. I have Student Trustee Jordan and then Trustee Brown.
So I just wanted to bring up some information that may have been overlooked in regards to the question about the data and prioritizing what gets done first and second and district-wide versus campus-wide. And I just had a thought about, I don't know if it was like a year ago, but the master data that was taken, it had a representation from each group, classified senate, students, the district, and it was prioritized because I was in those meetings, because I was on student government at my college, at Laney, and each college had a similar meeting. And so we have all of that information about equity and priority of what needs to be done first and how much it costs. And so I don't know where that data is right now. I'm sure that you have it, but that's just an idea so that we don't have to spend more money to revisit the question that Trustee, help me with her name.
Trustee Reese.
Trustee Reese was asking. So Trustee Reese, I think that would be a good way for us to look at that going forward, whoever the committee is, and if we could also model the committee after the master plan committee that we had, because it worked really well. And as Trustee Yuen was saying, we want everyone to have input, and so everyone was represented and had input. Thank you.
Yes, and that resides in the facilities master plan, and we do have that information. So very good point.
I think to student trustees' point, Jordan's point is making sure that that document is used as a guide in the development and implementation process of the bond. So I think that's just a missing piece, and we need to make sure that we resurface that document to the top, since it is a guiding analysis. Trustee Brown?
I was just checking because on our website to see how updated the data was, or how recent the data was, the bond expenditure reports. And I think that we have been asking for those reports, and we've been getting reports regarding the expenditures on the bond funds and how much is left and what's being moved to what project. That's been quite an extensive process, but I do see that it's not all available on the website. So what I would ask is that if we could get the reports that have been produced and provided in public meetings, because I think that's the intent when I look at this. So I don't think I'm asking for anything that's not already part of the process, but I just see that it's not updated, because what Trustee Reese has asked for is how much money's left and where is the money going, where is it allocated, which we have been, that we've received that report, but I don't see it. And I'd have to go through the agenda, and I'd have to go through board docs, which she shouldn't have to do. So I'm thinking that in order for us to keep on top of things, it would be good if we could have an easy reference. I guess that's the short of what I'm saying. Because this has been a really critical issue, because it's part of our facilities master plan, and how we knew that we needed to go out for a bond is how much was left and what still needed to be done. So if just saying, I think the intent of this website, or this page on our website, is to provide that information, but I think it just hasn't been updated recently.
We'll make sure that it's there, as well as creating something new for that combines Measure G as well, so that we can always be on track.
Yeah, we'll need to continue getting the reports, but the historical data, I think it is supposed to be on here. I just didn't see it.
So I have two follow-ups. I have Trustee Jordan and then Trustee Gonzalez-Ewan.
And just to piggyback off of what Trustee Brown was saying about the website, if the facilities master plan could be included on the website, it would be really helpful, because a lot of the questions would be answered from the data that was gotten or researched. And then also, if the process, the shared governance process that we exercised at Peralta at every school for the different projects could be implemented for what Trustee Ewan was asking, I think that would be really good, because then everyone has a seat at the table and it would be equitable. And then also, we could also deal with what needs to be done right away, because we already have the data and information.
The master plan is under general services, by the way, on the website.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's very hidden, and I think to student trustee Jordan's point and to Trustee Brown is really creating a site unto itself that all is located in one place. But Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you. We have done a lot of work with shared governance, and so Trustee Jordan is correct there. What the facilities master plan does is, college by college, lays out what are the needs and, in fact, begins to prioritize. What it does not do, however, is tell us college to college and versus the district, what campus will be prioritized. So you could say, well, the HVAC at Merritt is in desperate need of fixing. Well, so does the swimming pool at Laney. And then how do we balance and say, well, which campus will we invest in? Now, ideally, that's something that we should all come together with and consensus on. But this being a 4-campus district with a district office, It's not going to be as simple as that. And that's where I think, we can use the facilities master plan in that process. But the facilities master plan does not specify, well, first we're going to go to Laney, then we're going to go here. Facilities master plan, as good as it was, says not a word about housing. And this is something that I continue to raise, that was written in, over the last couple of years. And I think if we look right now at the crying need that the housing crisis has brought to our faculty and our staff and our students, I think we just need to revisit that and think, what can we be doing here? So I'll leave it at that.
If there are no other questions, we will move on. Since we are past time, can I get a motion to just approve us for till,
Motion
I
to
was going to say
extend till
10:15, 10:30, thank you. We had a 10:15. I looked up and said.
Motion to extend for 10 minutes, how's that?
I have a motion for 10:30. I need a second. So, all in favor? Fantastic. Okay. So we will move to, before we move to, Chancellor, thank you so much for that presentation. Before we move to consent, we had moved an action item 5.2 to action. I would like to take the chair's privilege and have that removed. It's missing all of the attachments. So we'll go ahead and remove 5.2. And do I need an action? If there are no objections, seeing none, we will now consider approval of the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve consent.
I have a motion to approve consent. I need a second. I have a second. Roll call. Let's do this.
Student Trustee Galan? Yes. Student Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow? Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napolia Bella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. We will move on to action items and remind that 10.1 has been removed, so we are considering 10.2, consider approval of resolution 18/19-44 to reduce/eliminate certain services due to lack of work and provide related layoff notices. Do we have a motion, or would you like to?
Make a motion.
Make
Yeah,
a motion.
I move that we approve this item 10.2.
Thank you. I need a second. We have a second. Discussion. Trustee Gonzalez.
Quick question on, and this is a question for VC Whitaker or the General Counsel. Is this an item that, because this is a represented worker with 1021, is this an item that should have gone through a meet and confer process before it came to the board?
We'll direct that to the Chancellor and allow him to.
Obviously, Whitaker can share what process you used.
Yes, that is correct. All layoffs do go through a meet and confer process, and I did have that process with SEIU on this matter.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Can we do roll call?
Student Trustee Galan? Yes. Student Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Napolia Bella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 10.3, consider approval of amendment Number 1 for 5-1/2 months, and I'm sorry, for 5.5 months, contract extension with ABC Security Services, Inc. for district-wide security, guard, and patrol services, RFP number 16-17/21, in the amount not to exceed $367,531.40. Do I have
Move
a motion?
approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Trustee Brown.
I think that we have waited, this has been a very difficult item for us, and we finally have some information on it. I think that adding the student services lens is important, but I do think that we don't have a need to provide the services and continue to work through this issue.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion. Trustee Gonzalez.
I'm going to vote for this because there really isn't an option. What I'm hoping is that we can very quickly re-agendize the issue of campus security, where we get a timeline for the next steps. Because it's clear we've got a big process, huge lift. When is that going to happen? And maybe that timeline can really have milestones, like, at month 3, we're going to get this, at month 5, we're going to get this, and then within a year, or 6 months or whatever it is, we actually have a real set of options in front of us, as opposed to a gun to the head, do this, or your students will be, subjected to all manner of depredation, et cetera. I hate voting on a thing 2 days before a contract is going to expire, or a week, or whatever it is. It's not acceptable. So I'm hoping our board officers will work with the chancellor to come back with a timeline. Thank you.
So if it's the desire of the board for the board officers to work directly with the chancellor and create a timeline for when more information will come back to the board, we'd be more than happy to take that direction from our trustees.
I think I would like to add to that. There's a shaping of the conversation that would be in addition to the timelines, and I was going to. You volunteered, so I didn't have to ask you if you would make maybe an ad hoc committee. But Karen knows what a heavy lift this whole thing is, and this takes some thought, and especially with some of the issues that Jason articulated and that we're aware of. And I think these things relate directly to enrollment at our largest campus. So I would ask if the comprehensive nature of the matter might be considered in addition to the timelines. And so since while you guys are still in that volunteering posture, I'm going to turn off my mic.
Thank you for that, Trustee Brown. Heard you loud and clear. Do we have any other questions? Trustee Withrow and Trustee Reese?
No comment.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. With that, we can do roll call. Thank you.
Student Trustee Galan? Yes. Student Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Yes. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
And Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10.4, consider ratification of amendment number 1 for contract with Ray and Associates for Laney College for deep cleaning and waxing in the amount of $4,950. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. Trustee Gonzalez.
I'll just say one thing. I'm looking at the documents, and this is a really delinquent. Coming as a ratification. This was work that was done in August of 2018, I believe, or something like that. And this is bad.
I'm sorry, I think you stated that so quickly, I don't know. Yeah, could you elaborate?
Okay, I was just reading the background documents, and it's coming as a ratification. We're in January of 2019. This was work that was done in 2018, but way, way back, and then it started, I think, in 2017, was amended, and then a contract might have been signed in 2018. It's not a lot of money, but if I'm a vendor and I've done work 8 months ago, and I'm waiting for $5,000 or whatever it is, I'm not happy. And so this just reflects poorly on us. I hope this cannot happen. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we will take roll call.
Student Trustee Galan?
Yes.
Student Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow? Yes. Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen? Yes. Trustee Napoli Abella Reese? Yes. Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla? Yes. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. We will move to, there are no informational items. We will go into 12.1, Board of Trustee reports. And I will start off to my far left. Student Trustee.
I have no reports.
Thank you. Trustee Handy. Trustee Jordan.
No reports.
Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
I'll wait until next time. Thank you.
Trustee Weinstein.
Just two things. I had the opportunity to meet with the program coordinator of the Berkeley Promise, and that's Fatima Rodriguez-Ortiz. And we spent some time talking about the outreach that she's doing, and I really feel happy about the work that she is doing for the Berkeley Promise. I'm very excited about that. And I also attended a meeting about mental health needs for immigrants. And that was fascinating as well, and it's something that I'm sure that our mental health services is looking at, but if not, I hope that they will. Appreciated both of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Withrow.
All pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Napoli Abella Reese.
Just greetings from the ACCJC Commission meeting where I'm with all the commissioners. Other than that, I'm glad that the meeting is over.
Which one?
Oh, no, your meeting. Mine is just starting.
Thank you for that. And we will move to announcements and our announcements. Trustee Karen,
Yeah.
do you have announcements on your on any of your readouts?
The next regular board meeting will be held on January 22nd at the district offices. Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.